Then they saw the lunchbox. The security footage was grainy, black and white, and frozen at timestamp 1642. Chief of Police Detective Miller pointed a pen at the screen. "There," he said, his voice hard. "That's the last time anyone saw them." In the massive, glass-walled office of Sterling Enterprises, the silence was suffocating. Victoria Sterling, a woman whose net worth rivaled the GDP of small countries, was shaking. She stared at the monitor, her hands gripping the edge of her mahogany desk so hard her manicured nails threatened to snap. On the screen, the elevator doors were closing. Inside stood her 8-year-old twin daughters, Emma and Lily. They weren't fighting. They weren't crying. They were holding hands with a man, a tall, broad-shouldered black man in a faded blue maintenance uniform. He held a mop bucket in one hand and Emma's small hand in the other. "Who is he?" the detective demanded, turning to the head of security. "We have an Amber Alert ready to go, but I need a name. Is he a kidnapper? A disgruntled employee?" The head of security swallowed hard, looking terrified. That's just the janitor, sir. Marcus Reed. He's been here 5 years. He's nobody. Nobody just walked out of the most secure building in the city with 2 high-profile children," the detective snapped. He keyed his radio. "Put an APB out on a Marcus Reed. Black male, early 40s. Consider him armed and dangerous. We have a kidnapping in progress." Victoria let out a sob, collapsing into her chair. "He took them," she whispered. "He actually took them, but the footage lied. Or rather, it didn't tell the whole truth." To understand why 2 billionaire heiresses would willingly walk away with a janitor who barely made minimum wage, you have to go back 3 weeks. You have to understand the lunchbox. The story 3 weeks earlier, for 30 a.m. The alarm buzzed in a cramped, 2-bedroom apartment on the south side of the city. Marcus Reed hit the button before it could wake his son. The room was cold. Heating was expensive, but Marcus moved with the practiced rhythm of a man who lived for someone else. Shower, shave, uniform. The blue fabric was worn at the elbows, but he ironed it crisp every morning. Dignity wasn't about what you owned. It was about how you carried what you had. He walked into the tiny kitchen and pulled a plastic lunchbox from the drying rack. It was cheap, blue, with a dinosaur sticker peeling off the lid. He had drawn that dinosaur 3 years ago with a Sharpie, trying to make his son laugh. His son, Ethan, hadn't laughed in 3 years. Not since the car accident that took his mother, Sarah. Marcus took a slice of bread. He cut the crusts off with surgical precision. He sliced an apple into thin wedges. He arranged crackers in a perfect line. Then he paused. He shifted the apple slices. He moved 2 grapes. He turned the food into a smiley face. "Breakfast," he called softly. Ethan shuffled into the kitchen. 10 years old, but he looked smaller. He wore noise-canceling headphones around his neck. He didn't look at Marcus. He sat down and began to rock. Forward, back. Forward, back. "Bus comes in 20, little man," Marcus said, placing the food down. Ethan didn't speak. He rarely spoke anymore. The doctors called it a trauma response layered over high-functioning autism. Marcus just called it the wall. He touched his son's shoulder gently. Ethan flinched, just a millimeter, but Marcus felt it. It broke his heart every single morning. Marcus grabbed his keys. He had a job to do. He was the ghost of Sterling Tower, the man who wiped away the footprints of the rich and powerful. At Sterling Tower, the atmosphere was toxic. Marcus was mopping the marble floors of the 15th floor executive wing when the shouting started. It was coming from the corner office. "I pay you to teach them, not to psychoanalyze them." The door flew open. A young woman ran out, clutching her bag, tears streaming down her face. She was the 12th tutor to quit this year. Inside the office, Victoria Sterling paced like a caged tiger. Standing near the window were the twins, Emma and Lily. They stood perfectly still, hands clasped behind their backs. They looked like porcelain dolls, beautiful, expensive, and completely hollow. "Get out," Victoria hissed at them. "Go to the waiting room. I can't look at you right now." The girls walked past Marcus. They didn't look at him. They didn't look at anything. They walked with a scary kind of numbness that Marcus recognized instantly. He saw it every morning at his own kitchen table. He kept mopping, keeping his head down. Invisible, he whispered to himself. Just keep the floor clean. But later that afternoon, the routine broke. Marcus was cleaning the supply closet on the 15th floor, A windowless room filled with paper reams and toner cartridges. He heard a sound, a soft, hiccuping noise from behind a stack of boxes. He moved the boxes aside. Emma was curled up in a ball on the dusty floor. She was hugging her knees, her face buried in her arms. She was shaking. Protocol said he should call security. He was a 42-year-old black man alone in a closet with a billionaire's daughter. The optics were a death sentence. But Marcus didn't call security. He sat down on the floor, about 5 feet away from her. He pulled a sandwich out of his pocket, his own lunch. "It's loud out there, isn't it?" Marcus said softly. Emma froze. She lifted her head. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked at him with suspicion, waiting for him to tell her to get up, to fix her uniform, to stop crying. "My son hates the noise too," Marcus continued, staring at the wall, not at her. "He finds small places, hides there until his heart stops racing." Emma sniffled. "Is he in trouble?" "No," Marcus said. "He's just sad. And sometimes, the world is too big for sad people." Emma slowly uncurled her legs. "My mom says I'm broken. She says I run everyone away. Grown-ups are stupid," Marcus said. "You're not broken. You're just holding a lot." For the next 10 minutes, they just sat there. Marcus ate half his sandwich. He didn't ask her questions. He didn't try to fix her. He just let her exist without demanding anything from her. When the door opened, Lily was standing there. She looked ready to fight, ready to defend her sister. But she saw Emma sitting calmly, wiping her eyes. "He's nice," Emma whispered to her twin. "He doesn't talk much." The arrangement started quietly. Victoria Sterling was desperate. She had seen something on the security camera that day. She saw her daughter walk out of the closet looking calmer than she had in 2 years. She intercepted Marcus at the elevator. "I'm not asking you to tutor them," Victoria said, her voice clipped and professional, hiding the desperation. "I just need someone to supervise. 2 hours. Late afternoon. The agency sent me 3 nannies this week, and the girls locked them all on the balcony." "I can't," Marcus said. "I have my son. I can't leave him alone." "Bring him," Victoria said. So, the strange ritual began. Every day at 4 p.m., Marcus brought Ethan to the penthouse office. Ethan sat in the corner with his Legos, rocking, building complex towers. Marcus cleaned nearby or sat with the girls. It was awkward at first, but children speak a language adults forget. One day, Emma sat next to Ethan. She picked up a blue block. Ethan paused. He didn't push her away. He handed her a red block. They built a bridge. The breakthrough happened in the 3rd week. Marcus was prepping Ethan's snack in the kitchenette. The twins were watching him. He cut the apple. He arranged the crackers. He made the face. "Why do you do that?" Lily asked. "Because he can't say he's happy," Marcus said, his voice thick. "So I make the food say it for him." Lily looked at the smiley face. She looked at Marcus. "Our dad used to make pancakes shaped like Mickey Mouse. Before he got sick." It was the first time they had mentioned their father. Marcus looked at them, really looked at them, and saw the gaping hole in their lives where a parent used to be. "Well," Marcus said, picking up the knife, "I don't know how to do Mickey Mouse, but I can do a pretty good smiley face." He made 2 more plates. When Victoria walked in an hour later, she stopped dead in the doorway. Her uncontrollable daughters were sitting on the floor with the janitor's autistic son, eating crackers and laughing. For a moment, it seemed like everything might actually be okay. Then came the knock on the door. It was 11:30 p.m. Marcus was in his apartment, folding laundry. He opened the door to find 2 police officers and a woman with a clipboard. She wore a lanyard that said Child Protective Services. "Marcus Reed?" the woman asked coldly. "Yes." Marcus stepped back, his heart hammering against his ribs. "We received an anonymous tip," she said, stepping into his living room without waiting for an invitation. "Allegations of child neglect, unsafe living conditions, and exposing a special needs child to potential exploitation." "What?" Marcus's voice shook. That's a lie. Who called you?" "We can't disclose that. But we know you've been taking your son to your workplace. A high-security corporate environment? That is not a child care facility, Mr. Reed." She looked around the small, cramped apartment. She looked at Ethan, who was sleeping on the sofa because he had a nightmare earlier. "We're opening a file," she said, handing him a paper. "If you take him to that building again, if there is one more report, we will remove the child from your custody pending a hearing. You can't take my son. Marcus whispered, the room's spinning. He's all I have. Then start acting like a responsible parent, the officer said. Keep him away from the Sterlings. We know about your history, Mr. Reed. The car accident? A single father with a temper? You're walking on thin ice. They left. Marcus stood in the dark, shaking. He knew who had done this. James Hendricks, the board member who hated Victoria. He had seen Marcus with the girls. He wanted to hurt Victoria, and he decided to use the janitor as ammunition. Marcus looked at Ethan sleeping. He couldn't risk it. He couldn't lose his son. The next morning, Marcus went to the tower early. He didn't go to the penthouse. He went to the basement. He wrote a letter of resignation. He left it on the supervisor's desk. He had to disappear. For Ethan. But he had to say goodbye. He went to the 15th floor one last time. It was early, before Victoria arrived. The girls were there, waiting for him. They had their backpacks. They looked excited. We made a drawing, Emma said, holding up a paper. It showed 3 stick figures and a smiley face son. Marcus felt like crying. He knelt down. I can't take it, sweetie. I have to go away for a while. What? Lily's face fell. Why? Because it's not safe for me here, Marcus said, his voice breaking. I have to protect Ethan. Is it because of the bad man? Lily asked. The one in the suit? We heard him yelling at Mommy on the phone. He said you were dirty. It doesn't matter, Marcus said. He stood up. You girls be good. Listen to your mom. He turned to walk away. Wait. Emma grabbed his hand. Don't go. If you leave, we'll be alone again. I have to, Marcus said. He gently pulled his hand away and walked toward the elevator. He didn't see them follow him. He didn't see them slip into the elevator just as the doors were closing. He didn't realize they were shadowing him until he was out on the street, blocks away from the building. He turned around near the subway entrance and froze. Emma and Lily were standing there, holding hands, looking terrified of the noise but determined. We're coming with you, Lily said. You can't. Marcus panicked. You have to go back. No, Emma shouted. If we go back, the bad man wins. We want to go to your house. We want the smiley faces. Marcus pulled out his phone to call Victoria, but his battery was dead. He looked around. People were staring. A black man arguing with 2 crying white girls in expensive uniforms. He heard a siren in the distance. Panic set in. If the police found him here, like this, after the CPS visit, he would lose Ethan forever. He would go to jail. Okay, he said, thinking fast. We need to go somewhere safe. Somewhere we can call your mom. He grabbed Emma's hand to pull her away from the street edge. That was the moment the security camera caught. That was the moment the detective froze on the screen. We have a ping on his cell phone, the tech officer shouted in Victoria's office. It turned on for a second. South Side, a tenement building on 4th Street. That's his apartment, the head of security said. Move. The detective racked his slide. SWAT is rolling. Mrs. Sterling, stay here. Like hell I will, Victoria said, grabbing her coat. The convoy of police cars screamed through the city, sirens wailing. They screeched to a halt in front of Marcus's building. Officers swarmed the stairs. They kicked down the door to apartment 4B. Police, get down. They swept the room with flashlights. The living room was empty. The kitchen was empty, but the bedroom door was closed. The detective kicked it open, gun raised. Hands in the air. He froze. Victoria pushed past him, screaming her daughter's names. Then, the room went silent. Marcus was sitting on the floor, his back against the bed. Ethan was sitting next to him, wearing his headphones. And sitting across from them were Emma and Lily. They weren't tied up. They weren't crying. They were eating. On a paper plate between them sat a sandwich cut into 4 perfect squares and apple slices arranged in a smiley face. Emma looked up at the men with guns. She stood up and spread her arms in front of Marcus. Don't shoot him, she screamed, her voice piercing the tense air. He's fixing us. Victoria dropped to her knees, sobbing, and crawled toward her girls. She grabbed them, checking them for injuries, hugging them so hard they squeaked. He kidnapped you, Victoria cried. He took you. No, Mommy, Lily said, pulling back. She pointed at Marcus, who still had his hands raised, tears streaming down his face. We followed him, because the bad man said he couldn't be our friend anymore. The detective lowered his gun. He looked at the scene. He looked at the lunchbox. He looked at the terrified janitor who hadn't run, hadn't fought, but had simply fed 2 hungry children the only way he knew how. Mr. Reed? The detective said, his voice softer. You can put your hands down. The aftermath wasn't a clean victory. It was a war. The next morning, Victoria Sterling walked into the board meeting. She didn't sit. She stood at the head of the table. James Hendricks was there, looking smug. He had heard about the raid. He assumed Marcus was in jail. I hear the kidnapper was caught. Hendricks smirked. I told you, Victoria. Low-status employees cannot be trusted. Victoria reached into her bag. She didn't pull out a file. She didn't pull out a laptop. She pulled out the cheap, blue plastic lunchbox. She slammed it onto the glass table. He wasn't a kidnapper, Victoria said, her voice shaking with rage. He was the only parent in this entire city who knew what my children needed. She looked at Hendricks. You called CPS on him. You tried to destroy a man's life, a man who has nothing but his son, just to get to me. It was a necessary precaution, Hendricks shrugged. It was an act of war, Victoria said. And you lost. She threw a stack of photos on the table. They weren't security photos. They were drawings. The drawings Emma and Lily had made at Marcus's apartment while waiting for the police. Drawings of a family that didn't match by blood, but matched by heart. I am buying out your shares, James. At market value. You are leaving this company today. If you refuse, I will release the police report stating that your false tip wasted police resources and endangered the lives of my children during a retrieval operation. The press will eat you alive. Hendricks looked at the photos. He looked at Victoria's eyes. He saw the end of his career. He stood up and walked out without a word. 6 months later, the Sterling Foundation for Child Advocacy opened its doors on the ground floor of the tower. It wasn't a stuffy office. It was a playroom. Bright colors. Quiet corners for kids who needed silence. Lego tables. Marcus walked through the front doors. He wasn't wearing a blue uniform. He was wearing a suit, though he still looked uncomfortable in the tie. He was the director of operations. He walked to the back of the room. Ethan was there, sitting at a round table. Emma and Lily were there too. They had come straight from school. They were building a castle, a massive, sprawling thing made of red and blue bricks. Ethan picked up a piece. He handed it to Lily. Tower. Ethan whispered. It was one word. But to Marcus, watching from the doorway, it sounded like a symphony. Victoria walked up beside him. She handed him a coffee. They're good today, she said. Yeah. Marcus smiled, watching the three of them. They're good. He looked down at the table. In the center of the Lego castle, the kids had placed something special. It wasn't a flag. It wasn't a toy soldier. It was a cracker. And a slice of apple. A smiley face. Marcus felt the ghost of his wife in the room, warm and gentle. He felt the fear of the last 3 years finally, slowly, begin to unclench its grip on his heart. He realized then that he hadn't just saved the girls. He hadn't just saved his job. By opening that lunchbox, by sharing the smallest piece of his grief, he had saved himself. Ready to get to work, Director Reed? Victoria asked. Marcus touched the picture of the dinosaur in his pocket, the one he kept from the old lunchbox. Yes, ma'am, he said. I'm ready.